Welcome to Tea and Stuff. I've been waiting for this episode for a while. This is with my good friend Amy, who runs the Mystic Tea Room. That is a very specific tea room. It's not your regular come grab a cup of tea, or it's, yeah, it is, but it's a lot of other things too. So I'll let you take it over from there. But Amy is my neighbor from the north. She's from Hamilton, Ontario, which is above us. And a good friend that I always look forward to running into whenever I head into Toronto. So you can take your introduction from here.
It's so good to see you, Jeff. Honestly, I miss us being able to do this in person so badly. It's not even funny. Anyway, so thank you so much. It's great to be here. Yes, I have a tea room that is not your traditional tea room. It is more your back room, tea room, kind of tea room. I'm a Taaseomancer, which also means that I'm a tea leaf reader. So I'll offer you a cup of tea, but only if you let me read the leaves that are left over. So that's how it works, right? So, yeah, and you know, I've been doing it. I worked it out this year. I worked it out. It's been 34 years that I've been reading tea leaves, which is crazy.
Wow.
So I know, you know, so.
Well, a lot of people like that, you, at least nowadays, that I'll hear that whenever I hear tea leaf reading, and I hate to be, hope I'm not being offensive to anybody, but it's typically somebody who is a bit more of a hobbyist, likes the idea and wanted to sort of get into it a little more themselves, which is nothing wrong with that. But sometimes, like when I want to talk with somebody about a subject like this, like I look for somebody who's really been living it a long time. And as you sit there and you tell me about your anniversary that you've just come up on, it really is amazing. So when I've told people like, oh, I have this friend, you know, lives and breathes Taaseomancy, and everybody knows just the bare basics, as kind of do I. I've been privileged enough to stand in on your lectures at the Toronto Tea Fest, so I guess I have a little bit more than I previously had when talking about Taaseomancy. But besides just tea leaf reading, like what is Taaseomancy?
Well, it's tea leaf reading, but it's a form of divination that has a long history. You know, like it's not something that is just done exclusively in England. Like reading coffee grinds and reading tea leaves has actually been happening since the earliest written English reference, 1600s, is what I've got. So I have a book here that even references it as far back as like 1792.
Oh my gosh.
Hang on a second. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm just going to pull the book out. So it's just
I was impressed because my wife and I were watching the new Law and Order episodes that just came out, and one of them was the new spinoff, like the organized crime unit, and it's about Albanian crime or whatever. Right. And he goes to this Albanian woman's house, and she offers him a cup of coffee and makes him drink it. He drinks it, and then she takes the cup, flips it over onto the plate, looks it up, and starts immediately reading his grounds. And he's like, looks to his friend, and he's like, what is she doing? And he's like, oh, he goes, she's reading your grounds. That's her thing. She does that. And I was just impressed to see it come up like that.
Well, it's funny, you know, like there's more and more people. 1780 was the date of that book. Anyway, so there's a lot of people that are becoming, I think honestly, this pandemic has made people look inwards an awful lot, which means that they have actually been also looking at the self-care aspects. They've been looking at the spiritual aspects. They've been looking at occult aspects. So divination is not a surprise that you're starting to see it come out more and more in the mainstream. That doesn't surprise me a bit. So maybe it's just me, but I mean, it seems pretty, you know, I don't know, it seems pretty normal to me, but that's besides the point.
Well, you've been living it for so long that you must have to remind yourself every now and then that like almost when you do events, I'm sure sometimes you have to do a little refresh over yourself and be like, just remember, there's going to be people of all different knowledge bases of what I do. And
well, it's interesting that you bring that up because so doing the talks at the events and everything like that, yeah, you definitely are you're definitely dealing with people, some people that know exactly what you're talking about, and then there's other people that really haven't got, it's so far out for them that they have no idea, right? So, and I'm totally used to that. I mean, like people look at me and they don't see a okay, so I use the moniker Tea Witch for a reason. You know what I mean? Like I'm heavily tattooed, you know, I'm into motorcycles and stuff like that. I'm not your typical tea person. This is why you and I get along so well, Jeff. So there you go.
I think that's actually a pretty winning formula for tea people, like in today's age. Like it really is. It's most of the people that are really into tea aren't the people that you would have years ago pegged as a quote tea person.
And it's interesting that you say that because, and that's a quote I got to stop using. But anyway, it's interesting that you say that because, honestly, Jeff, it's such a gorgeous tea. Thank you so much.
Amy's drinking the bug bitten Zinswen.
It's so good. It's the last of it too. So like I was literally savoring this for like something special. This is it. Anyway, so it's going down really well. See if tea drink happens really quickly here. So it's interesting because when I first started speaking at tea related events, specifically tea related events, I honestly saw myself as the outcast. And then I started to meet a whole bunch of other people that are just as interesting as I am. And I was just like, okay. And that sounded really bad because I'm really not that full of myself, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we all had this image of the tea world being this really stuffed shirt sort of mentality. And they're totally not. They're some of the most welcoming, kind, generous people that I've ever come across. And
I think that just comes from the fact that like sometimes tea at its most traditional roots is very ceremonial. And I feel like that's why a lot of like, at least people over here, I can say, have troubles getting into tea because they almost feel like it is something that's either upper class or it's above them or it needs to be explained to them. Like, you know what, only in that environment. And when sort of people like me or like you or lots of other folks are popping up there of all different, I don't know, character types. And it just sort of, it's become this really neat, you know, I guess maybe it's the new image of a tea person. Like,
well, and I think what I really appreciate is that the tea festivals are really embracing that, right? They're embracing that there's more to the tea world than, you know, your typical growers, importers, et cetera, et cetera. Like I think the tea world is embracing all things tea related, which and I have to do a big shout out to the amazing people at the Toronto Tea Festival for really taking a chance, because when they first, and I'll tell you this, nobody really knows this, but I'll tell you a little story. There was some pushback when I first started to present at that festival. So, and the pushback was not from the festival organizers, let's be very clear, and it wasn't from any of the other festival participants, but it was from other people saying that, how can you have, this is a quote, a devil worshipper come and actually do a talk about something that is so sacrilegious. So tea leaf reading is considered, some people, which I find amazing because a lot of my clientele are actually really religious people too, but some people find anyone that does divination, any form of divination, that they are heathens, and we may be heathens, but I mean, like that, you know, that we're heathens in that we worship the devil and we eat babies and all of this sort of stuff. So it's unfortunate, but that was I think that was only the first year, and then after that there was nothing. So
well, I mean, people have a really, really warped view of what Like, so when I was,
you're being bombed by a dog back there. I can see it.
yeah, where the, oh, he's relaxing now.
Okay.
He usually is not allowed in here when I podcast because it's been such a wild morning. I was like, I have to let him in. So okay, when I was out of high school, I was like playing around with trying to write like movie ideas, and I was just trying to find my creative point. And I was writing this movie about like it had to do with religious stuff and so, like demonology type stuff as well. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the bookstore and I'm gonna go to the occult section and see what I can get and read upon it so that I'm well read. So I bought the Satanic Bible by Antoine. I can't remember.
Antoine LaVey.
LaVey.
Antoine LaVey. So yeah.
So I was getting ready to read this book and have it be like, wild orgies and devil worshiping and slaughtering children.
So totally not.
At all. I mean, it was very strange that the message was just pretty much kind of like take care of yourself. Like it just wasn't as communal.
No, and so, but that's Hollywood, right? That's all Hollywood's fault, right? So when we look at that perspective, it's done the people that are serious practitioners of the occult and serious practitioners of different spiritual beliefs and paths and so on, etc. It's done them a disservice because everybody is expecting a witch to be, somebody with green skin and a big nose and warts and so on, etc. And that doesn't exist. I mean, there are some people that have green skin tones. Maybe that's what that old traditional Hollywood witch that was going with. But the reality is that it did a massive disservice to the image of what a witch is. And the reality is that there's witches everywhere, right? So
yeah.
So anyway, yeah. I could go
no, it's just no, it's not even like I don't even call it a tangent. It's just a good kind of course of conversation because that opened my eye. Luckily, I was very young, so I was right out of high school when I got that book and read it and was sort of like, I was put off because I was expecting this like all the Hollywood type stuff. So I remember then going on the internet and just doing a little more research, like making sure the book I got was like a reputable book about the occult and everything. And it was. And it's not that it didn't have anything of what, there's some definite things that you could go, oh yeah, that's kind of satanic. But overall, it really is just a message of kind of just taking care of you and your own and to not really feel bad about that. Like so
I'm not a Satanist but I'm well read as well. And from my understanding is that their perspective is it's all about your own personal wealth, your own personal health, your own personal stuff. It is not about a collective. It's not about a community. It's very secular in a lot of ways. They do have a satanic church where they do get together and do their ceremonies and whatever, but it's nothing like what Hollywood has actually made it out to be. And, other certain religions as well have made it out to be something bigger than it actually is. And I think that's the reason why it was called Satanism, right? Because there is that shock factor of no, it's not about the community. It's not about it's not about being guilty all the time, and it's not about needing to repent all the time and all of that other stuff as well. So anyway.
It was so super interesting. And then like again, then I meet you a couple of years ago, like more than just a few years ago now, but I learned about your business. And again, I was like, oh, I know just the skim of the basics. And then I sat through your talk and then I'm like, just getting to, I didn't think that it was like occult, but I did think of things like tea leaf reading as being like, out there a little bit, or it was for, you know what I mean? It was for when you're feeling, for when in October, when you're feeling a little extra festive,
Because
but
it's the spooky season, right? So
which I love, but so what can you read through reading leaves or grounds or whatever? What types of things can you find, or what things should you expect to find through that type of reading?
well, don't expect to be given lottery numbers. Seriously. There has been occasions where I've seen money coming from another source, but that's about as far as I get with it, right? So, and I've actually had clients that have won lotteries and some small windfalls and stuff like that, which is really cool. But that is not necessarily kind of the end all and be all with it. Like tea leaf reading was done to really see what your day was going to be like and what to expect in your day, sort of thing. So they're short term, first of all. Second of all, they were done by everybody. Everybody would actually read their leaves first thing in the morning. And that would just be done, by the lead of the house. So like if you were in the upper echelons of the financial spheres, right, then you would actually probably have a head house person that actually.
What culture are you speaking about? Like what part of the world are you?
Well, it would actually be, it's mostly British culture that started in. But tea leaf reading, it could have started in China as well, right? So
I just didn't know if there was a very specific area you were talking about amongst
most of what we know as tea leaf reading now is British.
Gotcha.
Right. So, well, that's unfair to say it's not British. It is Irish, it is Scottish, and it is the United Kingdom. So let's just be fair with that, right? There's even Welsh readers as well. So now I've got everybody covered in there. It's good.
That was impressive.
I need more tea now. So.
So, I mean, a lot of people would just think that it's like fortune telling. Like a lot of people would just draw a parallel to that.
Yeah, which is fair, which is totally fair, but it isn't always just about telling your fortunes. Sometimes it's giving you some very clear and concise answers to things as well, right? So, or it's a confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. I mean, the way that I end up reading is not about I'm literally just there to help a person move forward on their path, right? So whatever they're doing, I'm not involved in it, right? Like they're the ones that are actually in control here. They're the ones that are making these calls as to whether what I'm saying and what the leaves are telling me makes sense or not, right? So they can take the information, utilize it, or do bugger all with it. It doesn't make any difference to me. Have you noticed I'm not swearing, Jeff? I'm really trying.
I know. No, you're doing good. I know I've been trying to do good too, because what do they call it? There's I don't know, YouTube censorship where they're going through. Yeah, if you demonetization, that's what it's called.
Yes.
They'll demonetize you. It's absolutely ridiculous. So if in between like tarot reading, leaf reading, is there one that like reigns supreme, or is it more just what it fits you, or what culture you're coming from?
In what context? Because that's kind of a broad question, right? So, some cultures will. I truly believe that every culture has its form of divination. In fact, I've seen that been expressed across many different cultures, right? So, but it depends on the context behind that, right? So if you're going to say, oh, well, tea leaf reading is more popular in Britain, you could say that, but in reality, it's probably not. It's probably tarot cards, right? Or it might be somebody using a pendulum, or it is easier to say, culturally speaking, certain areas would be more attracted to this, but it doesn't really stick anymore because there's so many different people from so many different cultures actually tapping in, right?
So philosophically, and just pretty, not saying that there's no difference, but pretty much, I mean, tarot, you could look at tarot reading and tea leaf reading as being somewhat one and the same in the way you described it, and that somebody has something going on, they come to you to help kind of present, you know, the pull stuff from the universe and just sort of present them what you see, and then they take that information and go with it, as
Well,
opposed to like a psychic that kind of sometimes will tell you what to do with your life. And
so a psychic shouldn't even actually be telling you what to do with your life, but giving suggestions. Let's
I
be
agree
clear on that.
fully, but that's what they do here. I agree
No,
fully.
listen, I'm not disagreeing with you. That's why I don't use the term psychic. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but I do not use the term psychic. I use intuitive because I find the term psychic to be very derogatory. That's just my personal belief. But and it's only because there's been so much stigma attached to it. But tarot is a very specific method of actually doing divination, and tarot is literally well, I mean, it's the way that it's been expressed to me, it's the fool's journey through life is what you actually, it's a whole story. So all of those cards have very specific symbolism and meanings and so on, etc. So if you ever take a look at the picture of a specific tarot card, look at all the little details and the other things in there, you'll see that they all play in to the story of the fool's journey through life, right? When it comes to other systems like the Lenormand, which is the other form of divination that I work with, it has a very specific way of actually doing things as well. And then there's people like me that take the cards and they actually create their own method, right? So it depends. When it comes to tarot, though, tarot is generally starts off with the exact same story all the way across. You just get different types of tarot cards, right? So it is a very learned way of actually doing things. So all of those cards will actually, with your intuition, build up a really good divinatory process, right? Which works really, really nicely. But when it comes to tea leaf reading and oracle cards and things along those lines, oracle cards, they have a specific way that they've been looked at. So oracle cards would be like angel cards or animal spirit cards or things along those lines. They've actually been created by a maker, and they have their method that they're giving you that they've created to go with that. The tarot is the same story every time, and oracle card can be different every time. Right?
Oh,
Yeah. So even though you're getting, for example, the Thoth deck in tarot, right, which is a thelemic styled deck. Aleister Crowley had a great involvement in the creation of that particular deck. So if you're familiar with Aleister Crowley, he's got this reputation of being interesting in the occult world. Anyway, so right, I'm just going to leave it there. Gerald Gardner's got his own controversy, which I'm connected to. So just because of my lineage, but when we take a look at those influencers, they're still using that story that has been built for the tarot, but they're putting their stylistic stint on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
So what exactly brought you into tea leaf reading?
Tea?
Like, I'm sure your tea, I was just gonna say,
tea.
I was like, well,
no,
tea
full
journey.
full on tea.
But at what point did you all of a sudden realize that you were doing something more? Like, when did you recognize it as being in the direction of Taaseomancy?
My late teens.
Interesting.
So I was already experimenting with different forms of divination at that point. I'd already purchased tarot cards. I'd already purchased my first pendulum, things along those lines. But I was honest to God, sitting in a Chinese restaurant, and I just looked in the cups of my family and I saw stuff and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So then I went and did research afterwards and stuff. So
just kind of grew.
So seriously, it was tea. It's all tea's fault.
It's always T's fault.
It's always T's fault. So
it's, oh gosh, it's so fast. And then I love I always tell people at the Toronto Tea Festival to always make sure to check out your booth, because some of the just beautiful, what would you call them? Tea reading cups or relics?
well, so there's two terms for tea leaf reading. There's Taaseomancy, which is what I consider the true method of actually doing tea leaf reading, and then there's Taaseography. So if you break down those two words, you got Taaseomancy, which is which is goblet or cup, right? And then mancy, which is form of divination. So that's that word put together. And then there's Taaseography. So again, we have cup or goblet, which is the task part. The graphy part is actually a mapped area, right? Or mapped or written area. So it's more, the cups are more Taaseography cups because they're marked on the inside more than regular cups. And I just happen to have a busted one right here. So I'll empty my crap out of it. Hang on a second.
For display purposes.
For display purposes only, and it's filthy. But anyway, so this would be an example of a marked cup, right? So this one is actually sadly very broken, but this is a 1905 cup.
Wow, I know,
right?
And you bring a case of those with you to the Tea Fest, and I'll tell you, it's just so cool to not only like look at those and go, oh, they're a cool cup, and they've got, look, they've got these inscribed stuff on them, they're cool. But then you hear like when they're made and the purpose they were used for.
And the history is really, really unique and interesting. And if you take a look at the timelines that these cups were actually, they started to come out, mainstream human life in like North America and the UK and in Europe, they were all like, Egypt mania, right? So they were like right into, because Egyptology became massively popular even before Tutankhamun's tomb was found in the early 1900s, right? So, but that also started to really spark people's fascination with the occult and fascination with divination and things of more magical practice and stuff like that. So this is where we start to see more of the secret societies coming out and things along those lines. So it's the timeline on it is literally, I think we can thank the Victorians for all their superstitions and everything along those lines, because it's essentially them that actually really sort of cinched the deal on these types of cups and stuff.
And what's the general, like the transcription that's on the inside of the cup? What is that? Is that constant through the different kinds of cups? Is that a map for you, the reader?
So this cup actually has, you can't see it, but it actually has a anchor in the bottom of it. So this cup, the Nell Rose Cup of Fortune, which is unfortunately so busted, it's not even funny. But this Nell Rose Cup of Fortune would come with a booklet. And so the booklet would actually explain what all of these symbols would mean. So what you don't see here is the saucer, and the saucer actually has astrological symbols, and then you see the cup has planetary symbols. So what it does is that it kind of, in a sense, marries two different types of divination together by creating these marked cups, right? So you even get some of these cups that have playing cards in them. So and if you want to hang on a second, I can actually go down. I have two of them still here at the house. So if you want to hang on a second, I'll go grab them. You can stare at my Halloween crew behind my head here.
We can do that.
So yeah, I'll be right back. Hang on.
Go for it.
All right, I'm back. Did you miss me?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so the broken, sad one that I showed you is the Nell Rose Cup of Fortune. So I'll tell you the story behind it. So in 1904, a Mrs. Neville Ross and her husband created the design for the Nell Rose Cup of Fortune, which is this one that I was showing you earlier, right? So in 1905, Ainsley actually took over the patent for that set. So Ainsley again in 2018 created a brand new reproduction of that cup, and this is it. So this is from 2018. And as you can see, the saying is not on the side of the cup, but it is on the side of the cup on this one, right? So what the saying says, wouldst learn thy future with thy tea, this magic cup will show it thee. They've actually put it on the saucer.
Oh.
Isn't that neat? So Ainsley actually did this again in 2018. However, this was only released in China, or sorry, not China, Japan. They've actually only released this cup set in Japan, which is really quite unique. The unfortunate thing about this is that the saucer no longer has the astrological symbols on it.
That's what I was thinking when you were showing up. I was like, well, I do like the message on it, but it's like, does that hurt its value as a reading cup, or is it just sort of like, it would have been nicer if it had been there?
It'd be nice if it was there, but it doesn't. I honestly like the value of these things. It's really hard to say. Like, it's pretty funny though. Like they sent the booklet that goes along with it as well, and it's all in Japanese, so I can't read that. But just the same, it's just another piece. It's another piece that's going to go into the museum. So, but it
we know people that can translate that,
right? I'm going to get Momo to help me with that. So, anyway, so that's the Nalrose Cup of Fortune, and so that was kind of the first one. Wasn't the first one, but it was the first one in the UK that actually came out, and then there was another one that came out in North America by Hanley and Son, which is actually earlier. It's the late 1800s, but I don't have a copy of that one. Then Paragon actually got into the cups as well. And this is the Signs and Omens Cup by Paragon, right? And then it says, many curious things I see when telling fortunes with your tea.
I appreciate them rhyming.
Right? Yeah. For sure. So the thing that's interesting about this particular set, so the Signs and Omens was a full tea set. So it actually had a teapot, had a creamer, had a sugar, had sandwich plates, it had all the things, right? So, and this is like 1926, 27 that this came out.
Have you been collecting them your whole life, or did you like at one point all of a sudden start getting more?
I was given, so these are all museum pieces now. They actually go into my tea leaf reading museum. I've been collecting over 20 years for them. Some of them are gifts. Some of them I find at auctions, garage sales, antique shops. You know, sometimes people don't know what they have. I've had people coming to me in the last number of years asking me to help them identify or figure out what a specific cup set is or anything like that. So, which is nice. You know, it's nice to be sought out for that kind of thing. I'm not an expert. I never will be, I don't think so.
And yeah, it's what if somebody was like curious about Taaseomancy, like what would be your first like, here's what you should look at, or here's what it can offer you, or what type of person is Taaseomancy?
I think anybody. I mean, like I've been teaching it. This is my 21st year teaching it now, and I honestly think that anybody could get interested in tea leaf reading. I honestly believe tea is the big thing that will bring people together with it, because that's what tea does with anything else anyway, right? So that's how tea works. But
with the reading cups, so like, you know, like there's a lot of belief in like energy transference with tea, sort of like the farmer has good intentions, puts the good intentions into the tea, then it kind of carries down. Yeah. And a lot of beliefs that happens with teaware and with kettles that are handed down as well. As the cups are given down, the reading cups, do they gain like an extra spiritual significance like that.
I'm smiling. So it's really funny that you say that, because so last night I did a pre-record of a course that I'm doing about tea magic. It's called Tea Magic. And it's about my book that I'm writing, but just the same, it's kind of, I'm pushing myself to get the damn thing done. So, right. So when it comes to the cups, like for example, like this was obviously somebody owned this at some point and they took pretty good care of it and stuff. Is there an energy signature that gets attached to the cup? It only will happen, in my opinion, this could be wrong according to other people, but in my opinion, I think somebody's energy signature will only get attached to an item if they use it frequently. Generally speaking, these things were not used frequently. That's why there's so many of them that are over 100 years old that are in good shape. Right? So
yeah, what is their like, not that you're collecting them for the worth, but what kind of worth do those go for?
So one like this, the Paragon with the embossed outside and the sort of brownie sort of red print on the inside of it. The more desirable one is where it's sort of a fuchsia pink on the inside. They can go from anywhere from, like a full set, like a complete set that's in perfect shape. This one's got a hairline crack, so it wouldn't be as valuable. They could be anywhere from like $175 up to, and I'm quoting you American prices, not Canadian, because it's more in Canadian. Thanks, inflation. So 175, maybe you can find maybe 130 on one of these, but they can go up to like 295, 395, depending on where you're buying it, what you're looking at, how many pieces there are, all of that sort of stuff. Condition is the big thing when it comes to collectibles like this. But because I'm actually collecting for the museum, I'm not, I want an example in the museum. It's not so much about the condition that I'm really all that worried about.
Is there anybody that you kind of look to as like somebody else who's in the tea industry that specializes in what you specialize in?
I don't know anybody else specifically in the tea industry that does.
Well, I guess the world then, I mean, just in general, because like there's so many.
There's several people that I admire hugely in the tea world. And I'm not going to give you any names because I feel that's a little unfair. But in the world of tea leaf reading themselves, there's an online resource that I've been going to for many, 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 many years. It's been around for quite some time, since the early 2000s at least. And it's called the mystictearoom.com. And it's by, what's it called? I can tell you in just a second. Hang on a second. I'm going to look it up. But they have mystictearoom.com. It's run by Kat Uron and her crew. And where is it? I'm sorry. I'm just looking up the actual. There you go. Yeah, literally, it's the mystictearoom.com, not it's mystictearoom.com. And she has been running this particular course for a very, very long time. So not course, but her online museum has been really, really helpful for making sure that I've been getting the right information and stuff like that about the cups that I have. But then of course, you can go direct to the, for example, Paragon has many websites that are actually available that you can actually look up patterns and stuff like that, find out when it was remade. And so all of these things, right? So the China manufacturers and stuff are also where I would actually reference to. So I mean, there's so much history that's involved in this, like, you know, multifaceted, right?
So one other thing I definitely wanted to cover with you is I've been Toronto Tea Festival 2022. What do your personal, not who you even talked to, but what are your thoughts? Do you think it can happen?
I don't think we're going to see it next year. I think we'll see it in 2023. I think that I think they're being incredibly cautious, which is smart, especially with the way that the numbers are and the way that vaccinations aren't as strongly.
It's so unfortunate.
It is.
It really, because like
It is.
over here, it's not like we're COVID free, but I mean, our numbers, we have it. And I guess as time is going on, as we're going into fall, yeah, you are seeing more in terms of like number, like values, but we aren't. A lot of us, especially in New York, are vaccinated. So I mean, we have been on a nice steady increase of being able to do events, and like some people did it irresponsibly and some did it responsibly, but either, depending on which, people were still watching both of those and going, let's see what happens. And weird enough, we've had enough pretty large, we had the New York State Fair, which is 3 miles from my door, right? People
Right.
come from all over. We expected to see an explosion, and it's, again, our healthcare system is hurting like everyone, but we didn't. Knock on wood. Thank God. Thank be whoever. We didn't see that.
That's good.
So it's again. It doesn't mean that it is safe. It doesn't mean that everybody should willy-nilly. But I was so hoping that. But I did. Of course, I forgot about how Canada's vaccinations are far behind.
Actually, so they're not as far behind as you think. We've actually done really, really well. We're almost, I think we're over 80% for the most part.
Oh wow!
The unfortunate part of that statement is that there is still far too many people that are not vaccinated, which is what's clogging up the hospitals. For example, I don't know if you've heard about what's happening in Alberta right now, but Alberta is a hot spot for COVID right now, and they're in a state of emergency. So, and it's
you
just
guys.
well, it's not so much, it's.
I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, like, can you guys get not a break?
Can we get a break?
Can we get a break? Like, and not like, not an undeserved break. Like, you guys have gone from one lockdown to the next lockdown to the next lockdown with full restrictions the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, holy crap. Like, I think that sometimes I feel stir crazy or have felt stir crazy. And then I've talked to one of you or Phil or whoever, and then you guys tell me what's going on your side of the water. And I'm just like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's a little crazy.
And I'm not blaming I'm not putting down Canada either. Like, I hope that didn't
no.
just,
I don't take it. Listen, there's no blame involved here. If I was to blame anything involved in this part of the conversation, I would blame social media for spreading misinformation about the viruses and about the vaccines and all of that sort of stuff.
That was one of the most dangerous things.
And yeah, this has been a big issue. So
that's a very, very valid point. I mean, you look at all the bad stuff that happened, almost all of the worst stuff, like the looting and crowding in stores of people fighting each other for toilet paper, like all that stuff, like
panic buying. Like, honestly, was that necessary? And
that's not COVID.
That was
Right.
all the media's fault.
You didn't get diagnosed with COVID, and then you were like, oh, I need to run to the grocery store and buy up all the toilet paper and all it really was,
and all the flour and all the pasta.
Yeah. Flour, pasta, disposable gloves. you name it. If there was an industry that, and that was another sad thing, is that if there isn't, all industries were looking at, hey, do you think we can raise our prices? People
Well,
that,
and then if you take a look at the timing of when this all started, we were looking at finding better environmental solutions to single-use plastics. And what are we using more often than anything else right now? Single-use plastics, right? So
we were so, the movement on that had gained so much momentum, and it was doing so
it was doing
well.
so well. Yeah, I know.
It was so
It's crazy,
funny
right?
in a bad way, but it was like, you just, like, because I remember making the initial joke, like, oh, well, I guess they're gonna have to go back to plastic for a little bit, but then it just stayed there. And yeah, that's an interesting one. So yeah, there's been lots of like weird, like, everybody curses COVID specifically as like the illness for being the problem and everything, and it's like, no, a lot of it is our response.
Well, and and it has created a very divisive culture, unfortunately. So there's been a lot of separating, like people split down the middle about stuff, which is unfortunate. It's also, you kind of have both sides here, right? You've seen the inherent ugliness that exists, right? With people being racist and horrible about things. So that inherent ugliness, but then you've also seen this other side of humanity where there's been some real generous kindness. There's been some real, selfless behavior, which I that's what I'm hanging on to, right? Seeing all of that selfless behavior where people are coming together to help other people out, and showing great amounts of compassion and understanding and things along those lines. Like, that's the stuff that I find has been very well, especially as a small business owner as well with the storefront, right? So that's the other thing. So I am practicing gratitude every single day. I am grateful and thankful for every single thing that I still am able to do, right? So yeah, that's been, I think, if there was anything that Canada failed us on, okay, in the response to the initial response to the pandemic and everything like that, they forgot about the mini companies like mine, because I run everything. I am the company,
Yeah.
right? So if anybody wants a specific tea blended, there's nobody else going to be doing it. It's going to be me. You know what I mean? If somebody wants a specific, I make brooms and whisks and stuff like that. If somebody wants a special one of these made or something like that, there's nobody else doing it. It's me. So when the government here started to offer up all of their sort of, salvage plans for small businesses and stuff like that, they did it for businesses that are bigger, small, but bigger than mine. So smaller than Walmart, but bigger than me, so.
Yeah, you saw there was a lot of that here too. There was a lot of
Oh,
that
it's
here.
just, I think worldwide, it was a big failing,
And then there's this weird little wave of, then there are some super small businesses that are getting these grants and stuff, but you have to be a minority, or you
yeah,
have to be a single mother owned business, which I'm not dissing, but it's just sort of like, there's all these people that are willing to give out money, but only under, well, hey, only if you got this. And it's
yeah.
like, I understand that those people need help and deserve help too, but it's like, if you're offering help, shouldn't it just, I don't know, it just seems kind of crazy. And but at the same time, if I'm like thinking about this as a if I'm big government, I don't know. I agree, but sometimes when I try to like really get into their minds, I start to realize that I don't know how I would solve it. Like
Well,
sometimes I criticize so easily, and then sometimes I start thinking about it hypothetically, and I'm like, holy crap, I don't know what I would have done.
well, and that's it right there, isn't it? Right? It's like, okay, well, how would we all have reacted, related, dealt with? You know what I mean? Like, I think I think I don't know if I would have done anything differently personally, right? but I am still disappointed from a business owner perspective. I'm still disappointed, only because I felt completely unsupported at all. Right.
Well, you were. I mean,
I
that's.
was. I mean, like, we got nothing.
And again, it's not like
Nothing.
to extra shame them. It's just talking about it factually. Like,
Actually, that's
and
exactly
because
it.
and like because I wouldn't know about all of this unless if I weren't friends with all of the people like you and all the other people I've met in Toronto and because of Toronto, and they're all small businesses. And I've heard all of them just sort of I've seen, on Facebook or whatever, I see all of the cries for just sort of this is what we're going through. Just and it was really, really tough to see, especially when over here it's not like we were doing great the whole time, but businesses for the most part were rocking pretty normal,
And
except
then
for the main shutdown.
there's some areas, south of you that actually were not doing great at all. Like there was a lot of closures and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like we in the tea world, we saw a whole lot of change as well. I mean, even if you take a look at what's happening with some of the old tea farms in India, that a lot of them are changing hands, and some of them have not been able to. Like some of those plants went fallow this year. They didn't even get harvested. So I mean that on its own, if you take a look at that perspective, and you know this very well because you bring in from Taiwan and China and so on, etc., that our supply and demand is actually really starting to become a bit of a problem, especially importing, right? So
If I don't know if you remember this, but so at the first year of COVID, in spring, Japan refused to ship to the United States.
mhm.
So I actually, thanks to Momo, they
She
wouldn't
saved my butt too.
they wouldn't ship from Japan to US, but I could ship from Japan to Canada to US.
Exactly.
And she was more than happy to do that, and just that's
She's incredible. I mean, like, we're so lucky that we have people like her. So,
I tell
but yeah,
people about her all the time. Is the first time I met her was at Toronto, and she offered me a grape sencha, and I looked at her and I was like, "Let's this grape sencha. Like what a silly like just flavoring tea." I took a sip of it and I was like, "This is a delicious sencha." I was blown away, and then it's just funny because I went in with this almost jaded view of like, "Oh, this isn't going to be anything." And then I tasted the tea and it was wonderful. And then I talked to her as a person and she's even more wonderful.
yes, absolutely.
And some of the
Absolutely.
friends I've made up that way, I just, not only are they great friends, but definitely lifelong. I miss all you guys immensely.
It's
Um,
likewise, my friend. It is likewise. I mean, it'll be great when we can all meet up and share tea again. I think that would be super sweet.
yeah, well, us, as soon as it's safe to come over the border, especially if they're not going to be doing a tea fest. If they're not doing a tea fest, we're still gonna pick a time when it's clear enough to come out and spend
Yeah,
some
that'll
time in
probably be
Canada.
next spring, eh, Jeff?
I know. I know. I keep being hopeful, uh, but I don't let myself get let down either. Like it's just you plan and you hope for the best, but at this point, you just gotta accept that there's a certain amount of
Yeah, it's a bit of a drag, but it's fine. And
well,
you know what? We can do this, which is great.
yeah, yeah.
It's not perfect, but
This also, like, another great thing is that so many people out of desperation turned to the internet with their tea personalities and skill, and luckily they all took off, and now there is a endless amount of tea content on the internet.
yeah, I think it's great. I love that. I am a bit of a Luddite sometimes when it comes to technology. So like things like TikTok, I don't quite get.
Oh,
And I, to be honest, really don't want to. So
I refuse.
just like,
I put my foot down with TikTok.
honestly, right?
I said no.
But doing reels and stuff like that on Instagram, that has been kind of cool. Um, Yeah, last year, like, when this all started, we called it the shift and the pivot, and then I ended up calling it like the pandemic shuffle, right? So
Well, and
we
it was
had
screwed
to,
up.
no, I mean, like
Toronto,
I had to get all of my readings online, so I couldn't do tea leaf readings anymore because that's something that has to be done in person, but I had to do all the readings online. All of my workshops and programs are online now. I had to get my shop online, like all of that stuff. Honestly, Jeff, I had zero interest in.
and to not only have to do it, but to have no interest in doing it is like, oh, that's
It was hard, and I think the thing that frustrated me the most about that wasn't the fact that I had to do it. I got used to that pretty quickly, but it took me away from my writing. So last year was the year that I wanted to finish the damn book, and it's going to be called the damn book until it's published. So, but last year was the year that I was supposed to finish the damn book, and then COVID hit, and I just no inspiration whatsoever. And I've heard this from other authors as well, that with the pandemic, there's been zero muse time sort of thing. But now it's starting to come back to me, and I'm getting excited about it again.
fantastic. I know. Well, for a lot of people, it's like, oh, you had all this extra time. Why didn't you just write the book? And it's like, well, writing's inspiration for creative outlets isn't like that. Like,
No, but it's even worse than that. There was, like, they don't seem to understand, when you run your own business, there is no extra time.
yeah.
Right? Like you have no idea how many people I've run across that have basically said that, hey, I really want to be able to open a tea shop, and I think it would be so much fun, and I can have tea with my friends and all of this sort of stuff. It's just like, yeah, you do that.
We got a couple of those here in upstate.
It's like you have to be willing to be working 24 hours a day, right? And like, even though I think having a straight up just an online business maybe might not be as intensified, but having a storefront, it's brutal, because you're constantly having to be on, and that's what's exhausting, right? So having to like sell the product all the time, when in your case, you're doing your daily teas, which is great, which is helping with your product sales and so on, et cetera, which I'm sure is like amazing. But
Yours isn't your transaction or product for transaction isn't exactly the same. Like it's not as mine, if I hadn't already been online, would have been pretty translatable. Like it would have been kind of easy to make the switch over. But with stuff with you, how you do your business and what it is, and
changed everything.
Yeah,
it changed absolutely everything. And which is I adapted, which is fine, which is ironic, because I'm not a person that does really well with change unless I'm the one that's instigating it, right? But
well, this was a time in life where it was, I think COVID forced a lot of people to go, all right, well, listen, either you change or you're done.
Well, that's exactly it. Either it changes or it dies, right? So, and I'm not.
And a lot of people needed that, whether it was to keep their business open or to decide to close it. I know a lot of people that they used the pandemic as the reasoning to close their restaurant or whatever. And they did it because that finally gave them the weight off their shoulders to go, you know what, it has been a great run, but you know what, let's say the story's closed now. And they got to then move on with their lives instead of continue to drive themselves into the ground over and over and over. And,
absolutely.
That is
absolutely. But it's even so think of it this way. My business is about 65% services.
Services you can only do to a certain level over video. Like,
there's only certain amounts that you can do over video. So like, for example, I lost, the tea leaf reading. I wasn't able to do online because that would involve having to teach somebody how to do tea leaf reading. So, right. in my opinion. I know other readers that are doing it and they're having a great time with it, and I'm happy for them, but it's just not my bag. And then so I had to move the cards and everything online. I started doing the email readings. Thankfully, I was already thinking of ways of getting the Taaseomancy novice and the Taaseomancy advanced stuff online. So I was already sort of in a headspace to sort of work that one through. Thankfully, that actually worked out. And yeah, it's been
Well,
really
like,
good. It's been really well received. And I've had people from all over North America buy into it. So, which has been great.
not to be corny, but it really was. If you survived as a business, if you survived the pandemic, like there's no reason. It was a true. It's like same thing with relationships. It was a true test, and luckily, I can you can say you passed.
Well,
We are
it's not over yet, but knocking on wood, it's close. It's close. So for sure.
So we are definitely over time. So I gotta get moving. But I thank you immensely for joining me. We'll definitely have you on again. If you want to give out your website and stuff like that, where people can find more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Jeff. Honestly, I forgot that we were being filmed. So, and I didn't swear, I didn't drop an F-bomb once. I'm impressed. So you can find details about me online at my website at www.taoteat.ca. The company name is The Art of Tea and Taaseomancy and Mystic Tea Room. And you'll find me on social media on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
Beautiful. Well, again, hopefully stuff continues to normalize for you. Please take care of yourself, your loved ones, and all the other Canadians. We need you guys to stay healthy and get better so that we can all tea party again. So
you bet, man.
Thank you a ton. We'll be in touch soon, Amy.
Thanks, Jeff. When do you think you're gonna air it? Do you know?
Friday. I'm gonna be releasing them on Fridays now.
Fantastic.
So, every Friday. So
very exciting.
Thank you. I'll do a last cheers to you.
Cheers, my friend.
And take care.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Be well.